What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Game Plan Educational Solutions. I'm Cecilia Tomes, and this is the best channel for history teachers to level up their mindset, their management, and their methodology. So in today's video, as you may have guessed from the title, we are out to solve this new puzzle in our new educational setting that's becoming as complicated as a endless game of Jenga, right? With all these moving parts that we're needing to figure out. But the big question is, how can we still incorporate cooperative learning in our social studies classrooms? So this video is definitely not the end-all solution to incorporating cooperative learning in our classrooms, and if you have any suggestions, please drop them in the comments below so that we can all share and learn from each other. But I wanted to provide you with some tangible ideas of solutions that you can implement in your classroom. So if you're excited to learn about some strategies that you can use to implement cooperative learning in your classroom, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know exactly the second a new video drops. Also, as you know, this provides us with the opportunity to be seen by a lot more educators that may be in need of seeing this video. So I appreciate your support. Continue to inspire me to create more content for teachers who need answers, who need solutions. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Also, to better give you an idea of how some of these cooperative learning resources work, I wanted to actually share my computer. So the first thing that I wanted to show you is an application called Padlet. So you can see the name there on the top corner. It's padlet.com. To create an account is free. And the way that you can use this for cooperative learning is it could either be teacher-made or student-made. So if it's teacher-made, I actually created all the little elements that you see here. It's like an online bulletin board, if you will, where you tack up words, announcements, images, pictures for your class to discuss, for your class to analyze. And so I needed my students to answer, for example, the causes and effects of the XYZ affair. And because I needed to support or scaffold my students through it, I determined that I would pin these options up on a digital bulletin board that the entire class could see and access, and we would use these to answer questions. So let's say that I wanted my students to actually share a response, again, collaborate in an online setting. All they would need to do is actually double click the screen. And if I wanted to grade this or give them credit, they would write their name, student 1, and then they could write their response. They could add a link, they could add an image, etc. And the best part about this particular feature is you can do this in a synchronous setting and an asynchronous setting. You can do this with face-to-face instruction in a hybrid setting, because as long as your students have that particular Padlet address, they can all actually help contribute responses. And I was mentioning that this particular resource does allow a lot of teacher control, because you can actually activate in your settings a way for you to basically determine which items do get allowed to be pinned on the board and which ones are inappropriate, and you can toss them out. So it's totally, in my opinion, a lot more feasible than having to keep track of everyone's contributions on a chat via Google Classroom. Or, this is, again, a great way to bring everyone together and to allow students to bounce ideas off each other without necessarily having to sit together or, be in close proximity. So this one, again, is called Padlet, and I will put this in the video notes below. Okay, so the next suggestion that I have for you are rotating stations, or as people call them, like walking galleries, or you can do a distance version of the walking galleries. So the first suggestion is basically for teachers that are in a hybrid setting with a small quantity of students. I was very fortunate in my career to occasionally luck out and have some groups that were as small as 15. And so with these classes, it is absolutely ideal for a walking style gallery where students will not necessarily be working in partners or in groups, but you can assign each of them a station in this walking gallery that they can rotate to. And of course, you would take the precaution of making sure the stations are spaced out so the students are not clumped together. And then when you come back as a full class to discuss, you're doing the collaborative work there. So this is something that's a little bit hands-on, that'll get the students moving around, kind of change up the routine. You can also make it paperless by providing QR codes at each station versus having them type in a certain website, maybe get lost or distracted along the way. QR codes, if your campus has devices to accommodate this, are a great way that you can send the students straight to the website that you need, or provide them with a menu of options based on their maybe learning needs or abilities, etc. So this is one idea. A variation of this, if we need to do a distance version of this, because maybe we have a full class, but we have access to devices, so we're trying to go paperless, you can create a, you know how like bingo cards have squares? So in each of these squares, these can be stations, and you're projecting these on the screen and you're putting QR codes up there, and each QR code belongs to a station. So let's say, or you can even tape these menus on the desk just for students to snap, right, the picture, the QR code, and virtually go to that station without having to physically move or, you know, put themselves in proximity to another student. So if I'm assigned to start at station 1, I would scan the QR code for station 1, and then I would either, you know, watch the film or complete the activity or do the brainstorming or whatever digital assignment you have linked to that QR code. Now, it's a really easy thing to do because there are Google Chrome extensions that can allow you to make a QR code out of any website that you like or any document that you have. And again, in this way, you're still compacting that information. You're giving students some baseline knowledge that they can come back and discuss later as a class, as a group, or they can later participate in some sort of class trivia game as a collaborative closing activity.
So the next resource that I wanted to show you all for cooperative learning, either in a face-to-face setting, in an online setting, or in a hybrid setting, is of course Nearpod. Now, many teachers are familiar with Nearpod. Not everyone's necessarily a fan, but I just thought I would share how I use Nearpod to help me not only teach at a distance, but also even differentiate for my students. So on the screen, you can see that the site is nearpod.com. Again, that's nearpod.com. And again, links will be shown in the video below. But basically, it is like PowerPoint or Google Slides, but on steroids, in the sense that it allows users to create polls. It allows users to create polls. It allows them to participate in mini quizzes, short answer questions. You can embed videos and apply links. So let me give you an example of a Nearpod that I created. And you can do this either student pace, so that they have the ability to flip this PowerPoint on steroids, as it were, at their own pace, or you can also do live participation, which, again, if you're teaching in a hybrid setting and your students have asynchronous class time with you, but you're in a hybrid setting where you're needing to teach them online, as well as your students in the class, this is a great option so you can teach the whole class simultaneously. So that would be the live participation button that you're seeing there. So in this particular instance, I'm starting off with an open-ended question. Maybe I'm pre-assessing what my students already know, what comprehension they already have. And again, as you notice, these are just slides, but you can embed polls and things like that. And it just keeps the class engaged. And again, it's great when you want your students from your online setting to be able to participate along in class with your in-person class students. The best part is, you can see the results of these polls. You can download the results, so you can take that as a grade, and it is paperless. It's a paperless option. This is also kind of comparable to Pear Deck, although some people would argue that Pear Deck has possibly more interactive capabilities than Nearpod. Actually, I'm pretty sure it does. It's great for geography teachers. So Pear Deck is another option that compares with Nearpod. Where I worked, we did use Pear Deck, but very limited. At least in my department, most of my teachers opted for Nearpod. So that's the one that I wanted to show you, but there is another one called Pear Deck. So I just wanted to share really quick before I hop right off. This Nearpod tool, if you have, a lot of teachers are concerned about having to remake their entire, group of lessons that they have. All you need to do is basically upload a PowerPoint you already have in existence, and it'll basically populate it into Nearpod for you. But I wanted to show you how you can use this to differentiate into different stations. Because I'll be talking about that later. You can literally create 4 different PowerPoints, let's say 4 different Nearpods, and you can assign a cluster of students to that Nearpod. So they'll be looking at that lesson, at that content, doing those activities. And just like if it were actual stations where your students are moving about, when the timer rings, you would rotate them to another Nearpod link or code that they would go into and participate and discuss with their team by answering questions, etc. So this is a great way to differentiate, and it's also a great way to oral test your students who have that accommodation, because it does allow for audio embedded within the slides. So great alternative where it's like a catch-all, and this is great for teachers that are maybe beginners in tech and just need everything in a central location rather than figuring everything out on Google.
The next option you might consider is having individual activities at student seats, but the activities be structured in a way where their individual completion or participation correlates with a total number of group points or group completion rate. So basically, it's like you're breaking up the task already for them, which they will complete individually at their seat, but then will be, taped together or presented together, etc. So this can be done with things like interactive games where you might be asking trivia questions. And even though I may not be sitting with my team, any questions that I choose to answer go towards my team points. This can be done to motivate your students to complete assignments or, again, to participate, because they know that their participation will affect their team's scoring or overall win in the end. You can also do something like this for scavenger hunts, where every student would be responsible for maybe answering their own set of questions, and then maybe the scavenger hunt answers are graded together, or and when I say graded together, of course, I mean they're graded at the desk, but the points are brought together, right? Or the responses are shared together, or they can answer, and then share out their responses on something like Jamboard or Padlet. You can also do this activity with trivia games, or you can also complete an activity like this with trivia games. You can also use these individualized activities for things like research projects, and the only thing that you would need to prepare is a split up workload so that each student at their desk knows what they're responsible for doing, so that when they showcase their work together or present orally from their desk or from the front of the class, they're able to each collaborate one segment of this project's response or resolution. In my experience, students really enjoy this because it allows them to, 1, take ownership of their part of their assignment, 2, not feel overwhelmed that they have to do the project for the entire group, and 3, it allows students, and my personal practice has always been to grade students individually, even when they're doing group work. Again, this definitely keeps the accountability factor there, but students really enjoy that, and it makes them feel like they're working to earn their own grade, right? So this might be a great solution if you are wanting to do something interactive, but maybe don't have the space or area to mobilize an entire class and keep them distanced. This is also great if you want to do maybe a project that's paperless. You can have them create a digital product that they can all collaborate on, maybe a Google presentation that they later showcase in class and share over to you to present to the class. So these are just some ideas for those individual activities that fulfill group objectives.
Next resource that I wanted to share with you all is the resource called Flipgrid. So most of us, again, are quite familiar with Flipgrid, or we've used it in instruction before, but the way that you can use this in a cooperative setting is by using it for group discussion. This is for our students that are a little bit more camera shy. This is also for our students that don't really like to talk a lot, or if we have students that are, English language learners or things like that. This really facilitates the educator, the teacher, getting to see what the student knows as far as language, engaging what their comprehension level is without necessarily have to put them on blast, to actually have a discussion just right out the gate. So this is a good cooperative learning setup if you want to go paperless. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a particular Flipgrid that I created. So if you go to flipgrid.com, you can sign up for an educator account. It is free, and you can include a summary. This actually has a inbuilt reader, so it can actually read whatever question you pose to your class. You can embed a video. You can share a link to a website that you want the students to check out. And students are able to see all the elements that you want them to talk about or discuss. And then down below, the students can record themselves reading a response. It's great because it allows students, if they want to, they can cover their face, they can just post a picture with their audio, but it still allows for some sort of collaboration to happen. So once they send you a video response, other students can actually comment on that. So in this way, if you create a group and each of your students knows which group they're in, they can create videos and be assigned to do a video response for their team members only, or to comment on their team members only. And I don't want to tell you that this is necessarily easy to grade, but as far as getting a participation overview of who's saying what and where students are at with their thinking, again, this is a great way to get students talking to one another, even in a digital setting. This is also, and I have used it during face-to-face instruction, and I apologize for my dog back there. I have used it during face-to-face instruction, and even though sometimes it's challenging to have a conversation, with the camera in front of your classmates, after the first 2 times that we did it, my students kind of got the hang of it, and they were they literally knew what to do. They were in the zone, and this did work out for our class. This for group discussion. You can use this for Socratic Seminars if you're looking to do a Socratic seminar, but you have half of your class in person, half of them online, either at the same time or, staggered throughout. You can still have them post their version of the discussion or their point of view, and then just have students respond to that. So again, this will work for hybrid, synchronous, asynchronous, and even face-to-face. If you cannot be in close proximity to your peers or your teammates, you can just post your video and then your teammates will respond. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, the resource is called flipgrid.com.
Our next idea for cooperative learning activities is Socratic Seminars. Okay, y'all, so I'm a total fan of Socratic Seminars. I did this with my 8th grade social studies class, and if I can get them to do it, you can definitely get your students to do it as well. This was an activity that did not require us to necessarily sit together, and most of it, because of their age group and because of their just the cognitive level that they're at, it's a lot of modeling on my part, and it's also a lot of guiding them through the thinking process. This is also good for older students because, truth be told, I don't know that too many students are exposed to a Socratic style seminar. I know that when I taught at the university, this is pretty much all we did. So I really wanted my students, if you need to differentiate for a more advanced group, this could be an idea for some cooperative learning, but at the same time, keeping safety measures in mind. Another alternative, a final alternative for collaborative activities done in a classroom setting. And this could be done face-to-face. This could also be done hybrid, and this could also be done purely online. And this is dramatic readings or performing a skit online. And I have done dramatic readings from skits or plays that I myself have written for my class, but there are tons of resources out there about historical scripts or plays that students can read and contribute to, so long as every child has access to a digital copy of the script or paper copy of the script. But again, if we're trying to go paperless for safety reasons, we would just provide the students with a copy. And as long as everybody knows their part, then everybody will be collaborating in reading and discussing this particular historical topic or event, and then later opening it up for discussion about the significance of this event. Finally, but definitely worth noting, are online breakout rooms. And recently a lot of educators have been resorting to using these breakout rooms where students can be dismissed into different individual conversations with their peers. The downside is that sometimes there are not enough educators to facilitate all discussions, and definitely not simultaneously. So those are definitely a challenge, but again, they are a way to work collaboratively if you feel comfortable working in that environment, or if your district has requested that you utilize the strategy to keep students engaged or collaborating on group topics. However, earlier I introduced Flipgrid, and I also discussed Padlet as viable alternatives for breakout rooms if you don't feel comfortable, having your students be in discussions individually, or you work with a younger age group, or just flat out it's too challenging to keep track of video and chat and everything else going on. You may consider just replacing breakout rooms with either Flipgrid, where you can have the opportunity to listen to students' knowledge, to students' feedback individually, or you can also use Padlet, which kind of works like a chat, but it's a lot more simplistic and it's a lot easier to facilitate. And the class can still see it, can still access it, and they can even include images with their response. I really hope that you found all these quick tips, these quick ideas for collaborative learning helpful. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite, or if you've tried any of these, what your experience was. If you do go and try these out with your class, let me know how it went. If you liked this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit that notification bell. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, class dismissed.